joined by my co-host Kim Lantis. I'm in Los Angeles.
Hello.
Kim is in Hermosillo, Mexico. We are all home, as most of you are home as well. So we're recapping two shows from last week. One was Road to Happiness and Revenue with David Meltzer, and that was on Wednesday. And on Tuesday we had Donato Diorio talking about selling, marketing, and networking, and how to use data to be more effective at doing those things, and how companies can basically remake themselves during uncertain times. Kim, welcome. Great to have you. Let's see what we can come up with in the next 9.5 minutes, 9 minutes, 10-minute recap.
Why we
Um,
should
I,
watch these shows.
yes, yes. So if you, I'll start it off. The one that stood out the most for me was obviously the conversation with David Meltzer. There were so many amazing, good tips there for people to take to heart in terms of the importance of having the right mindset during even difficult times, right? One of the things
Mhm.
I've often heard him say, and he's a personal mentor of mine, a friend, often heard him say, it's like people will tend to say things like, I can't believe I have to go through this, right? We are going through this. I can't believe we have to go through this. And he's always had this mind shift of like, instead of saying that, say I get to go through this. And it's a complete different approach to
Mhm.
tackling challenges, because I get to do this means I get to overcome. I get to come out on the other side stronger and better. And I
Mhm.
think it's such an important topic, especially right now. There are some companies and individuals just panicking, thinking this is going to last forever, and acting accordingly. I have to deal with this instead of what can we do to stay in this positive state of mind, encourage being happy, finding the silver lining, looking for opportunities, finding ways to grow and learn from the experience, maybe to become more
Mhm.
connected as people, and come out of it on the other side stronger and more powerful. That's something that in his message really resonated with me, and also his mission to really try to encourage this idea of being happy. I did the math
Right.
on his
I think it
mission, which is
actually
like a billion
interesting.
people.
Yeah, the reach is really fun there. But I think it's a nice connection between the other talk last week of Donato's, because he actually mentioned exactly that, this idea of maybe not in the words of have to versus get to, but this idea of taking this as a time to sort of reinvent yourself. He even said something like focusing on the things that you're not typically doing, right? So perhaps use this time to do something else that's productive, right? As a way to reinvent yourself or to clean up, some of those tasks, those monkeys on your back that you haven't had a chance to get around to, and things like that. So I think there's a lot of nice overlap. What I enjoyed about David's talk too was his sort of analogy of the virality, right? Pun intended, with COVID-19, and then this idea of happiness, right? And he started talking about the exponential growth of happiness, this idea that you could even see it when it becomes contagious. But that this he started, I think, a little smaller several years ago. This idea of 2 by 2 by 2, which was his goal to have a positive impact, I think, in two people every year for the next however. And if those two people had impact on two people, et cetera, push comes to shove, it would be around 2 million people. And now he's upped his ante to 1,000, right? With the goal of eventually hitting and impacting, I believe, a
A
billion
billion
people.
people. Yeah, a
Yep.
billion people. The thing that stood out for me a lot is also this idea that you've got to have a long term vision for yourself, and
Mhm.
have to have the patience to stay the course year in and year out. It doesn't happen overnight. You know, one of his friends and has been a mentor to him, at least from a marketing perspective, has been Gary Vee, and he's also been a mentor to Gary Vee in helping him establish his sports agency. And you know, you take someone like Gary, it took him 15 years to reach the kind of reach he has now, right?
Right.
That would probably take a lot longer today because the social networks are a lot more saturated and there's a lot more people putting out content. But it wasn't something that happened overnight, right?
Mm-mm.
So, just like anything, if you want to achieve something that's of value to other people, you're going to have to stick with it long enough to actually gain some momentum. And then that momentum does start to sort of have this
Right.
exponential growth. And, wouldn't that be nice if we started seeing that on Twitter feeds and the news about the exponential growth of happiness in the world instead of the
Rather than
exponential growth
coordination.
of this chaotic pandemic we're in?
Well, I think
I
one of the
mean,
things that
could
David
you
said was
imagine we tracked that kind of thing? I mean, what kind of world would we live in if we were starting to track people's level of happiness worldwide?
right. Oh, well, hopefully, yeah, I think you're right. I think what's interesting is he actually said one of the direct quotes I picked up Twitter material from David was something to the effect of too many people work hard and they work smart, but they don't work long, which is going in line with what you're saying. And I think it all again even overlaps with Donato what he was getting at the very beginning of his talk. He talked about he's into machine learning and automation. That's what his company does, and he says, I don't believe in drudgery. When I see anybody anywhere doing anything that can be automated, I want to automate it for them. I want people in all lines of work using their brains in unique ways, not doing something that a computer can do. So this overlap of, I think, working smarter, using technology to that advantage. And I think a nice tie-in with this idea of happiness, right? Or this creativity, this emotional element that a machine could never emulate. It could never do like people do. And just this nice kind of merge, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So if you haven't watched that show last Wednesday on Dojo Live, you need to do it. You need to do it. I mean, you owe
Mhm,
yourself to do it. It was a phenomenal 30 minutes with David Meltzer. And the other thing that we had on Tuesday was I thought was interesting. If you're going to have a lot of time cleaning up your house, a lot of people kind of doing, cleaning, whether it's just looking through files or going through that closet. You have a lot more time at home. You do things like that, right? You try to be
mhm,
productive and you try to find the silver lining and take advantage of that time to maybe get your house in order, right?
right.
You're talking about in business too. It's the same thing. Getting your business in order is really about the data. If you're trying to improve your sales and your marketing strategy, or even just how you network with potential partners, with potential customers, getting a strategy in place to looking at your data and cleaning up your data, having an approach to being smarter about how you make decisions. This is the perfect time to do that. So that was, I think, was encouraging to don't, there's always like, oh, we'll get to that when we have time. Well, you have time. This is the time. So
Yep.
I thought it was interesting that very timely, pun intended, that if you've been on the fence about looking at ways to use data to improve how you run your business, this is the most opportune time to do so and to get smart about the decisions you make moving forward. At least, especially as we come out of this challenge that we're in, you definitely want to find yourself at a competitive advantage by doing some investments and some smart things about
Mhm.
how you track your business. What did you
And
think
going
also about the
going back,
conversation with him?
yeah, I think he's right. But then going back to this idea of data, again, this nice merge of the both talks. Then you had David talking about this idea of analyzing your culture, right? We have to analyze our data, but we also have to analyze our culture and cling on to that foundation or your vision or your values as a company, and really lean on those hard, and figure out ways in which you can also tap into that culture throughout a time like today or what we're experiencing. So I think just beautiful.
Yeah, I think you made an interesting point. I mean, we sort of had both the mind and the heart coming to these two shows. The conversation with Donato was more about smarts and using data
Hmm.
and logic, and the conversation with David was about being real and being authentic and getting in touch with your inner self and doing those things that you need to do that are not necessarily black and white like data. They're talking about culture. If you haven't invested in developing a culture in your business, maybe this is the time to do it, right? Because when things get difficult, that's when you shine, or the darkness of your business comes out too. And there are going to be companies that are either
Hmm.
going to have incredibly loyal employees that come out of this, or companies that are going to have a lot of people that are going to leave on their own because of how things were handled. So
Right.
good tips from both fronts. Highly encourage those who didn't watch the shows to watch them. They're on nearself.dojo.com. Did I say that right? There's a backwards. Dojo.nearself.
Dojo.nearself.com.
Sometimes I flip them. And check those two out. I think you'll get a lot of benefit from it. And then join us again this Wednesday. We're going to have another show. Actually, we had a show scheduled,
and I believe it had to be canceled.
With Claude Silver from Gary V. Obviously, things are really difficult in New York right now. I had planned to do this in person in New York City. We'll reschedule her, but I think we might have another guest coming in on Wednesday. So stay tuned. We'll have something come up. And if not, we might have just a team discussion.
If not, just go back and watch the reruns.
Exactly. Well, thanks for joining us today, and stay safe, stay home, and just hang in there a little longer. We're going to get over the hump very soon.
Bye.